I called my mum and it went straight to voicemail. At first that might not sound strange. People miss calls all the time. Maybe they're in the shower. Maybe they left the phone in another room. Maybe they're just tired and don't feel like talking. But for Robert Tester, something about it didn't feel normal. He called her around lunchtime. No answer. He called again before dinner. Still nothing. Then after dinner he tried one more time. Straight to voicemail again. That was enough to make him uneasy. His wife could tell something was bothering him, and she told him what he was already thinking. If he was that worried, his mother only lived about 15 minutes away. He should just go check on her. So Robert got in the car and drove over, expecting maybe to find her asleep, or maybe having trouble with her phone. What he actually walked into would pull him straight into one of the most disturbing cases detectives had seen in a long time. The moment he stepped through the front door, something felt wrong. There was a smell in the house. Strong, strange, unpleasant. It smelled like gas or something close to it. That alone was enough to make his stomach tighten. Then he looked ahead. On the kitchen table sat a gun. That made no sense. His mother, Cindy Tester, owned firearms, but seeing a shotgun just sitting out in plain sight on the table was completely out of place. Robert moved forward just enough to look deeper into the room, and then he saw her. Only partially at first. From the shoulders up, there was red, or maybe purple. In that moment, he couldn't even fully process what he was looking at. He just knew it was bad. Very bad. He turned around almost immediately, walked back out, and called 911. That call would be the beginning of a case that started with one murdered woman, then quickly expanded into a second missing victim, a stolen car, a mysterious man on home surveillance, and a killer whose calmness would leave even detectives stunned. Robert had been preparing to celebrate his mother's 62nd birthday. It was supposed to be a normal family gathering, the kind that becomes even more meaningful after you've already lost one parent. Ever since his father died, Robert had grown even closer to Cindy. He checked on her regularly. He stayed in touch. He knew her routines, so when she suddenly stopped answering, he knew enough not to ignore it. Cindy had been living alone in her late father's house. She had once moved in to care for him when he became sick, and after he passed, she stayed there. From everything people later said about her, Cindy was the kind of person who naturally took care of others. Robert described her as unique, original, almost like a true flower child from the 1960s. She had a free spirit, but she was also deeply nurturing. When Robert was younger, she ran a daycare out of the house. She spent years caring for other people's children. Then later, she cared for her own father. Looking at her life from the outside, she didn't seem like someone with enemies. She wasn't known for conflict. She wasn't known for drama. She was just Cindy. So when officers arrived at the home on Roseland Avenue in Maryland, they had very little to go on. A worried son had found something horrifying inside. There was a gun on the kitchen table. There was a strong gas smell in the home. And there was a woman lying on the floor. Because of the firearm and the uncertainty of what might still be inside, officers couldn't just rush in blindly. They had to clear the area first. They moved carefully around the exterior of the home, checking windows, doors, the back of the property, making sure no one was hiding nearby. The situation was tense. At that moment, they still didn't know if a killer was inside, if a victim was alive, or if the house itself had been turned into a trap. Then they went in. Room by room, officers cleared the house. They moved past doors, checked corners, called out, pushed deeper inside until they reached the victim. By then, it was already too late. Cindy Tester was dead. The scene was brutal. She had suffered sharp force injuries to the upper body. Investigators would later determine she had been stabbed multiple times, and the wounds on her hands showed she had tried to defend herself. She fought for her life. But whoever attacked her had overpowered her. The shotgun on the table had not been used to kill her, and the smell of gas filling the home added another terrifying layer. Investigators began to suspect the killer had tried to set the stage for something even worse. It looked as though there may have been an attempt to start a fire, or even cause an explosion. If that was true, then this wasn't just a murder. It was a murder followed by an effort to destroy the scene completely. But the killer either ran out of time, got interrupted, or failed. That failure gave investigators the chance to see the crime scene for what it was. And what they saw raised even more questions. The house had been ransacked. Drawers were pulled out. Belongings were disturbed. Jewelry and other valuables were missing. Cindy's 2013 Honda Accord was gone from the garage. At first glance, it could have looked like a robbery gone horribly wrong. But even then, something felt more personal than random. The level of violence was extreme. The gas in the house suggested planning. The killer had not just taken things and fled. He had done much more than that. As detectives worked the scene, they began talking to Robert in more detail. They needed to know when he had last seen his mother, when he last spoke to her, whether she had mentioned anyone suspicious, whether she had conflicts, fears, visitors, anything. Robert told them the last time he had actually spoken to Cindy was earlier in the week. She had texted him on Friday, sharing something simple and ordinary, a photo related to a friend's daughter who had gotten married. It was the kind of normal message that makes these cases feel even crueler. One moment life is moving in the smallest everyday ways. Then suddenly it stops. Police asked the obvious question. Did Cindy have enemies? Nothing suggested that she did. But then investigators found the first real break in the case. Cindy had home surveillance footage. When detectives reviewed it with Robert, they spotted something that immediately stood out. On footage from the previous day, they could see Cindy coming home. Then, on the morning of the murder, a man appeared. He walked up to the house casually. At first, the interaction didn't look alarming. He seemed relaxed, comfortable even. But the more they watched, the worse it got. The same man was seen entering and leaving Cindy's home. And then, even more importantly, he was seen driving away in Cindy's stolen car. Robert had no idea who he was. He had never seen him before in his life. That changed the direction of the case instantly. Now detectives weren't just working a homicide scene. They had a mystery man caught on camera, moving in and out of the victim's house and leaving in her vehicle. If they could identify him, they might solve the case. So they began canvassing the neighborhood. Investigators knocked on doors and spoke with neighbors, hoping someone had seen the man, recognized him, or noticed anything unusual in the hours around Cindy's murder. One neighbor mentioned something important without even realizing how significant it would become. Across the street from Cindy lived a 66-year-old woman named Judy Slebzak. And according to people nearby, no one had seen or heard from Judy in some time. At first, that might not have sounded directly connected. People go away. People visit relatives. People check into treatment. Neighbors gossip. Rumors form. But in a murder investigation, no one has seen her in months is not something detectives can brush aside. Police learned that Judy's disappearance had been explained away with a rumor. Some people had been told she went into rehab. Others weren't really sure where she was. But there was one more important detail. Judy had a stepson named Ryan. And neighbors said Ryan had shown up around the time Judy disappeared. He had apparently told people he was there to take care of her. Now investigators had a possible name tied to the neighborhood. A missing woman across the street. And an unknown man on camera in the murdered victim's home. That was no longer a coincidence. As Judy was officially reported missing, officers went to her house. No one answered. That deepened the concern immediately. Detectives started looking into her background and the people connected to her, especially this stepson, Ryan. Then a former neighbor named Linda James came forward and shared something critical. She said Judy had health issues and there were rumors about substance abuse. She also said Ryan had turned up and basically inserted himself into Judy's life. After that, Judy was no longer seen, except for the repeated explanation that she had gone to rehab again. That gave investigators exactly what they needed. A full name. Ryan McGuire, 32 years old, Judy's stepson. The moment detectives began digging into Ryan, things started moving fast. They searched older records, found prior reports involving him, and then compared his photo to the man captured on Cindy's surveillance footage. It was a match. The man seen entering Cindy's home and leaving in her car was Ryan Maguire. At that point, Ryan became the center of the investigation. But he and Judy were both missing. Detectives needed to locate them as quickly as possible. They obtained a search warrant for Judy's house and prepared to search it thoroughly, hoping it would reveal where Judy was and what exactly Ryan had been doing there. But before that search could fully answer those questions, another lead surfaced. Robert remembered that Cindy's wallet and credit cards had been stolen. Because he had access to some of her account information, he realized he might be able to see whether the cards had been used after her death. That turned out to be huge. A recent transaction showed up at the Deluxe Plaza Motel on Pulaski Highway in Baltimore. That was exactly the kind of lead detectives needed. They moved quickly to the motel and pulled surveillance footage. What they saw confirmed everything. The person using Cindy's stolen credit card was Ryan Maguire. Not only that, but Judy's missing car was parked outside the motel, and the room Ryan was using had been rented under the name of his girlfriend, Jessica Chamberlain. Ryan wasn't hiding very hard. In fact, the footage showed him looking completely relaxed, casually walking around the motel as if nothing had happened, as if two women weren't missing or dead, as if he had not just been captured on surveillance using stolen property from a murder victim. Police were done waiting. As Ryan exited the room and headed toward the car, officers moved in and arrested him. Inside the motel room, they found a collection of evidence that painted a horrifying picture. There were credit cards belonging to both Cindy and Judy, Cindy's checkbook, Judy's mail and financial papers, women's jewelry, new shoes, a knife, shoes stained with blood. When that blood was tested, it came back as Cindy's. By then, detectives had enough evidence to know they had their man, but they still didn't know the full story. Judy was still missing. Cindy's murder had not been fully explained, and the evidence suggested Ryan had moved between both women's lives with frightening ease. 2 days after Cindy's murder, on June 26, 2018, Ryan Maguire was brought in for questioning. What happened in that interrogation room would shock investigators, not because of loud emotion or dramatic denial, but because of how calm he was. Ryan sat there with no panic, no visible guilt, no breakdown, no sign that the gravity of the situation was pressing down on him. Instead, he made a request. He wanted a cigarette. And then he said something chilling. Give him a cigarette, and he would tell detectives everything they needed to know. That kind of statement can be bluff, manipulation, stalling. But detectives kept talking. They asked him about the motel, about the car, about Judy. Ryan gave little bits at first, just enough to keep the conversation going. Then, as the detective moved to get the cigarette, Ryan suddenly dropped the line that changed everything. She's gone too. She's dead too. He was talking about Judy. Just like that, with almost no emotion, Ryan confessed there was a second dead woman. He even said detectives could charge him for that one too. It was one of those moments that completely transforms a case. What began as a murder investigation involving Cindy Tester had now become a double homicide. And the only person who knew exactly where Judy was had just casually admitted she was dead. When the detective returned with the cigarette, Ryan began explaining more. He said detectives would never find Judy unless he told them where she was. Then he said she was still in her house. He claimed Judy had been using drugs and that she asked him to inject her. According to his version, he gave her a shot. She came out of it, said she didn't feel well, and then wanted another one. He said he injected her again, and that did it, but this was no accident. Investigators would conclude that Ryan intentionally gave Judy a fatal overdose. His own words and the surrounding evidence made clear that he knew exactly what he was doing. He also admitted something else. He had been living off Judy, using her home, using her money, feeding his addiction through her resources. In his own twisted logic, Judy had become a source of shelter, cash, and access. And after she was dead, Ryan didn't leave. He stayed. He moved around inside the house, hiding what he had done and controlling the narrative outside. People were told Judy had gone into rehab. That rumor helped keep anyone from looking too closely. It bought him time. But Judy was never in rehab. She was dead inside her own home. And where exactly had Ryan put her? Hidden in a chest under a bed. That single detail says so much about the cruelty of this case. Judy wasn't just killed. She was concealed inside the house while Ryan continued moving through the neighborhood, carrying on as if her life had simply vanished into silence. Now detectives knew what happened to Judy. But what about Cindy? Why cross the street and kill a second woman? As questioning continued, Ryan made it clear that Cindy had noticed something. She had started asking questions. She realized something was wrong at Judy's house. She had seen Ryan around. She knew enough to become dangerous to him, and that appears to have sealed her fate. Cindy wasn't targeted because of some long personal feud. She wasn't involved in criminal activity. She wasn't living some secret life. She was murdered because she got too close to the truth. She became a threat to Ryan's ability to keep exploiting Judy's death and taking what he wanted. He had already killed one woman for money, access, and control. When Cindy began noticing what was happening across the street, he killed her too. That explains the surveillance footage of him casually approaching Cindy's home. He had likely already been moving freely between the two houses. He knew the neighborhood. He knew who lived where. And he knew Cindy had started to piece things together. Once inside Cindy's house, the encounter turned deadly. Investigators determined that Ryan stabbed Cindy multiple times. The defensive wounds on her hands showed she fought back. After killing her, he ransacked the home, stole valuables, took her car, stole her financial items, and then attempted to set conditions in the house that may have caused a fire or explosion. He didn't just want to kill Cindy. He wanted confusion, delay, destruction of evidence, and then he wanted profit from whatever he could take. The violence, the theft, the gas, the stolen vehicle, the use of her cards at the motel, all of it formed a single horrifying chain. Ryan killed Judy to gain control over her environment and resources. He killed Cindy because she was starting to see through the lie. Then he stole from both women and kept moving. After Ryan gave up Judy's location, police returned to Judy's house with a search warrant. This time they found what he had described. Judy's body was recovered from inside the home, hidden under the bed in a chest. The smell Ryan mentioned during the interrogation now made sense in the most awful way possible. The search of Judy's house and the evidence from the motel room completed the picture investigators had been assembling piece by piece. The surveillance footage, the stolen vehicles, the credit card use, the blood on Ryan's shoes, the knife tied to Cindy, the property from both victims found in his possession, the confession, the body. There was nowhere left for Ryan to hide. As the case moved through the system, the motive became clearer and clearer. Ryan Maguire was deep in addiction and desperate for money. Judy had become a person he could exploit. He stayed with her, used her, and ultimately killed her. Cindy, Judy's friend and neighbor, noticed the disappearance and started asking questions. Ryan saw that as a threat, so he eliminated her too. 2 women, 2 innocent lives. One killer driven by greed, addiction, and complete disregard for human life. There is something especially haunting about cases like this, because both victims were older women living in what should have been the safety of their own homes and their own neighborhood. Judy was someone Ryan should never have harmed, especially as a member of her extended family. Cindy was the kind of woman who spent much of her life caring for others. Neither one of them deserved the terror that entered their final days. And what makes it even darker is how ordinary the beginning looked. A missed phone call, a worried son, a quick drive to check on his mother. That's how Robert Tester stepped into this nightmare. He had no idea that his mother's murder would lead detectives across the street to another hidden body. He had no idea that a surveillance camera would capture the man responsible. He had no idea that stolen credit card activity would point police to a motel where the killer was casually sleeping among the belongings of both victims. But without Robert acting on his instincts, this story could have gone very differently. If he had ignored the missed calls for another day, maybe longer, who knows how much more Ryan might have done. He was already stealing. already selling property, already moving from one victim to the next with terrifying boldness. The evidence could have been further destroyed. Judy's body might have remained hidden even longer. The investigation could have been delayed in ways that made justice harder to reach. Instead, Robert went over there. He trusted his gut. And because he did, the truth started surfacing before Ryan could bury it completely. In the end, Ryan Maguire pleaded guilty to 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder. On December 12, 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. That sentence ensured he would never walk free again. But no sentence could undo what happened. No prison term could restore Cindy Tester to the son who went looking for his mother before her birthday and found a crime scene instead. No conviction could restore Judy Slebzak, whose disappearance was hidden behind rumors while her killer lived off the aftermath of her death. This case is a brutal reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are not the ones crashing in from the outside. Sometimes they slip into everyday life quietly. They make themselves useful. They linger in the background. They exploit trust, vulnerability, and routine until the damage is irreversible. Ryan Maguire did exactly that. He moved between 2 homes, 2 women, and 2 crimes, thinking he could keep it all under control. But the smallest cracks exposed him. A worried son noticing unanswered calls, a camera catching a face, a stolen card used at a motel, a neighbor speaking up, and finally, a killer arrogant enough to think a cigarette was a fair trade for the truth. In the end, that truth revealed something cold and merciless. Cindy Tester and Judy Slebzak were not random names in a police file. They were real women whose lives were taken by someone who valued money, access, and addiction more than human life itself. And all of it unraveled because people kept asking questions. May Cindy and Judy both rest in peace. And for everyone watching, let this be a reminder to trust your instincts. When something feels off, when someone disappears, when a story doesn't add up, don't ignore it. Sometimes that uneasy feeling is the first sign that something terrible is already unfolding.